The collaboration conversation is brought to you by Project Brickworks, the new arts ministry dedicated to equipping Christians to use their talents and gifts to bring others into a relationship with King Jesus. We created the collaboration conversation as a way for Christians to share about their upcoming projects and how they are using the gifts and talents God has given them. Today, we are so excited to have with us Mr. Stephen Moten. Stephen, thank you so much for being with us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to be on here and to see you guys.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you virtually. You guys know each other, but this is our first time meeting. So this year has, for everybody, been crazy and unpredictable in so many ways, and everyone has been impacted one way or another. How are you? How are you handling it? What's keeping you sane? Just talk to us a little bit about what your life is like right now.
Yeah, I mean, who would have known a year ago that this is what we were headed into in 2020? And so it has been a crazy year. I don't need to be another person that points to how crazy it's been. Our world has been impacted by it in a lot of different ways. I'll kind of say it's been an answer to prayer in so many unexpected ways.
Yeah,
I've been
absolutely.
able to, I have two small kids, and so me and my wife were able to spend a ton of time at home with them, soaking up these years that just go by so fast. And so that's been a gift. One of my prayers coming into this year was just to have a slower pace. Well,
Well,
I guess.
it's your fault. No, I'm just kidding. That's
Yeah, and so slower pace, and I've kind of been able to do things I don't normally do. I've been cooking more and kind of been able to help out around the house. I've always been interested in grilling, but this year I've really been able to hone in on kind of smoking some meats, and so I will put my smoked wings up against anybody's, and that's as humbly as I can say that. But no, seriously, that's been fun. I spent the time, and one of my favorite ways to spend time with people is on the water fishing. And so I had an uncle that passed away earlier this year, and that was a hard thing, and he meant a lot to me. And he took me fishing a lot. We spent hours upon hours on the waters, catching fish, talking life. And so it's been fun to restore one of his old boats and be on a boat with some of my high school friends, some of our volunteers, just fishing and
yeah.
catching up and just being out in nature. And so it's been a gift that's one of the few things that you can still do with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Cool.
great.
Well, for our listeners who may not know who you are, will you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah. So again, Stephen Moten. I am from Jackson, Tennessee. Grew up there and kind of grew up in church. And I got to high school. I had two older brothers, and I was always in their shadows, right? And I got to high school, and um, I was really trying to get out of their shadows, and I kind of got this new start. My family, we moved from Jackson all the way to Kingsport, Tennessee, 400 or 500 miles away, and there was hard to get readjusted to this new environment. And I met a guy named Scotty Dancy. Scotty was an adult. He didn't teach at the school. He wasn't a student at the school. He was a grown man, but would come to the school and just hang out with me and my friends. Uh, Before long, I learned that Scotty Dancy was a young life leader, and he invited me to some young life activities in Kingsport, and he would buy these huge pizzas from Chef's Pizza and Kingsport, and he would just talk life, share his stories. We would share ours with him, and he was a pretty influential person in my life. Got to my senior year, I wanted to graduate from my friends I grew up with, so I moved back to Jackson, and everything was different. My friends that I grew up with, they were into different things I wasn't necessarily in. I had a lot of hopes for my senior year of football, and those things were, falling through, and had a relationship that didn't go the way I wanted to. And kind of going into senior year, I was kind of spiraling. I had all these expectations that were just letting me down. And there was another adult, guy named Blake Spann. He showed up on my my football practice, and started inviting me to have breakfast with him, me and a couple of friends, and we would open up the Bible together. And just during the midst of all the chaos in my life, Blake was an anchor. He was a solid, consistent person who pointed me to Jesus. He was a young life leader, and um, he was really instrumental in me coming to faith. And so um, I ended up staying in Jackson, go to college at Lambeth University, so I could continue my relationship with Blake. I played football there, and I got to be a young life leader. Got to be the same influence that Scotty was and that Blake was to me. I got to be that to some of my friends at the high school that I graduated from. And so that was a huge influence in my life. And after college, I got to work with Diane with TSAC, where we um, help walk students and parents through the financial aid process and figure out how to pay for college. And met my wife, Leslie, both volunteering in Jackson. And we were both young life leaders. And we got married, and opportunity came up to move to Memphis. And so we took advantage of that. And I eventually had the opportunity to work for this organization that has been so impactful in my life. And I've been working for Young Life going on 8 years now. So, yeah.
That is awesome. I love when God does things like that, where, you get to give back in the same capacity that you were discipled in and mentored in, and that was so impactful to you. I love that. Those are my favorite kinds of stories.
Yeah. It's really one of the things that we've talked about is that, at least for probably even the first year, the folks that we're going to have on the podcast are people that we know, that we're in relationship with. And you and I really hadn't talked much, if at all, in 7 years or more. I mean, I know that I get updates, from colleagues and things, but you did a
Right.
fundraiser. Was it bowling?
We did a Wingathon fundraiser. Yeah. So we were trying to send kids to Young Life Camp, and we try to find just creative ways for our friends to raise money for themselves, and creative ways for people to give back towards kids being able to go to camp. And so back over the spring, I signed up to eat as many wings as I could, which
how did you do?
Was I ate more than I should have. I think we were right at around last year I did 30, and I knew better this year, so I ate about 20. And I had people to sponsor me for each wing that I ate. And
that's what it was. Yeah. Well, I signed up to sponsor you. And so that's kind of how we reconnected. And then I just have been kind of following your posts on Facebook, and, and I thought, I really want to know more about what he's doing. Obviously, you left working with us to pursue this. And so I was kind of mad, but no, I'm just kidding.
But not really.
But it was like, okay, what ministry has drawn him in so much and that you were so passionate about? So, I love that we've connected again after all of these years. So we're going to go ahead and show a video that you've given us about your ministry. So let's go ahead and show that clip.
The life of a teenager can seem like a wilderness. From the busyness of school to the pressures of sports,
and the constant need for cell phones. Life feels wild.
On the surface, their lives appear to be full of big dreams and the hope of love. It can seem like they're living a life of reckless adventure.
But if we pull back the curtain and look beyond the surface, we'd see lives that are broken, enslavement to addictions, unmet expectations, and homes that are torn apart.
We'd see innocence stolen and hearts that have lost all hope.
in Young Life, we believe that this is not the end of the story and that God has called us to step into the wild.
To cultivate hope in hopeless places, to shine light into the darkness, to tell kids in our city that the God of the universe is crazy about them.
Every day, Young Life leaders in Memphis go into the wild. They show up at practices and games, in lunchrooms, and on college campuses. Young life leaders go into wild places, remembering names, forming friendships.
1, 2, 3.
Listening to their stories,
and earning the right to be heard, that they may share the deep conversations about life and faith.
Why do Young Life Leaders go? We go because we want high school students to know Jesus and his transforming love.
Young Life Leaders go because that's the example that Jesus set for us.
He came to us so that we may know life, so we do the same. Young Life Leaders go in order to walk with teenagers in their hardest times, in their deepest pains.
we do this because we want kids to know that their lives are not too messy, that they are worthy of friendship,
that they don't have to be slaves to the voices surrounding them that say that they're not enough and that they're beyond repair.
All over our city, from Manassas to Houston, Douglas to White Station, and everywhere in between, Young Life Leaders are on a mission to tell every kid,
regardless of their situation,
about the extravagant love of Christ
and the full life that he has for them.
This is why we go.
This is why we go.
This is why we go.
This is why we go into the wild.
My gosh, that is just so inspiring. It was so uplifting, and the Into the Wild theme, it hits it so like the nail on the head. I love it.
Yeah,
Can you elaborate for our listeners what it is that Young Life does? And your part in it, as well as the volunteers and the kids you guys mentor. I just would love to hear more about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, Into the Wild, that is what we do. The mission of Young Life is to introduce adolescents to Jesus and help them to grow in their faith. And so in Memphis, the way that we describe it is we go, build, earn, and share. And so on any given day of the week, Young Life leaders, volunteers, college-age students, all the way to moms and working adults, these volunteers, they go into the world of kids. You can find them in cafeterias like Scotty was in my life. You can find them at sports practices, at recitals, Friday night football games. They are there with the singular purpose of building authentic relationships. So they go, they build relationships. They ask kids what their names are. They remember kids' names. They make connections and have conversations with them. And over time of consistently showing up in their lives, they're able to earn the right to be heard. The old adage, no one cares how much you know until they first know how much you care. Kids know that Young Life leaders care because we keep showing up. We're not scared of their reputations or the names that they're called at school or the things that they've done. We don't judge them for the mistakes that they've made. We love them for who they are. And so we are able to earn the right to be heard. And that's a privilege. Kids listen to Young Life leaders because they put in the time. And so with that, it provides just an opportunity for us to share the love of Christ. That looks like each Monday night or one night a week, we'll do what we call a Young Life Club, which is, we call it a organized chaos, a party with a purpose. It's geared towards anyone from someone that's familiar with the faith to someone who, may have tension against the faith. It's appealing to every kid. They come in and there's the leaders that have been in their worlds, they're greeting them at the door, saying, "Hey, we're so glad you're here. Come on in." There's music that connects with them. We have games that set kids up to win. And so we get to celebrate them in a world where they just don't get celebrated much. And then at the end of the night, a Young Life leader who has been in the kids' worlds opens up the Bible and shares the gospel with them, shares part of their story and shares God's story and invites kids to find their story in there. And so, we do a club. We have small group Bible studies that we call campaigners. that again are led by those young life leaders that over time just earn the right to be heard. And we take kids out of town. We go do young life camping in the summer. So it's a 1 week trip that we take kids to. I had one of my friends, Christian, he said, "Hey man, you can't call this a camp." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Dude, when I think of a camp, I think of like cold showers and tents and no heat and air conditioning." It's like, man, this is a resort. And
It's a retreat.
and it really and it really is. It's a place that's just made for kids. Every inch of the property, everything that we do is made for kids and it's thought through for them to enjoy it and experience the best, because we believe that God has the best for them. And so that in a nutshell is what Young Life does. I have the privilege of being the area director of Young Life in Memphis, which means that I am a Young Life leader at Central High School, but I get to build teams of Young Life leaders and send them out to other schools. And so there's encouraging those leaders, encouraging our staff who work alongside me to send these volunteers into schools. There's development of new and next ministries, as well as the resources that takes to make Young Life happen in our city. And that's my job and Young Life in Memphis.
That's awesome.
We've
Incredible.
been around for a long time. We're going on 80 years of Young Life ministry in Memphis.
Right.
So
Let me ask you a
quite the
question.
history.
Yeah.
How many volunteers do you have in the Memphis area, and how many students are they each kind of connected with?
Yeah, we in the Metro Memphis area, we have about 100 Young Life leaders, and so with Young Life, we have ministry to high school students, which is our traditional Young Life. We also have some focused ministry. So we do wildlife with middle school students. So the same Young Life model, but with middle school students, appropriately called wildlife. We have college Young Life on college campuses. And we also have Young Life Capernaum, which is a focused ministry that serves students with disabilities. And we also have Young Lives, which is Young Life with teen moms. And so we get to minister to teen moms and their babies and get to see generational impact. So
That is incredible.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I just think, especially in high school, so your self-esteem, everything is so heightened as far as like emotions run, at least my high school was. I don't know about anybody else, but I just find that those were such a transformative time in my life. And I think in the lives of other people, if you don't have anybody on your team, that impacts you for the rest of your life. And so I just think that is so incredible. And it was really, really inspiring to hear you talk about that, about earning the right to be heard and letting those kids know that they're not alone, that they have a team member for life. I just think that that's just so incredible. So kudos to you and to your whole team. So in light of our focus on this concept of brick building, of using the talents and the spiritual gifts that God has given us to use them to build our brick in collaboration with God for his kingdom. That's what we're all about. So in light of that, what are the talents and spiritual gifts that God has given you?
I'm amazed at the ways that God has wired me, and just how he has used just so many things in my life to shape and mold me to who I am. And so as I think about how he's wired me, I think I love people, and it's not just a coincidence, but even in my story, living in Jackson, Tennessee and moving to East Tennessee, which are totally different places geographically and demographically,
Sure.
I was able to build relationships with lots of different people. And that's something that I enjoy. I can find common ground with anyone. And God is using that. He's used that in me to be a bridge builder, to bring together people who wouldn't necessarily ever cross paths, but I can be a person that connects them, helps them to understand each other. And I've been able to do that so much in this past season with, the political climate and,
Mhm.
the police brutality and the loss of lives that we've experienced in 2020. And to be able to sit with people who are hurting and say, hey, everybody's not like this. But also be with people who don't understand why people are hurting. Say, hey, here's another perspective. Uh, that's something that I feel compelled to lean into. And I think that's a part of how God has wired me and has gifted me. It serves me well in ministry in obvious ways, just, working with people and whether that's, a student who lives in a under-resourced neighborhood or a donor that lives in a gated neighborhood, and just helping
Yeah.
them realize, just live lives outside of their world. And so that's a way. I am a strategic thinker. Like, I love big pictures. I love to dream. I love to look at things that are challenging and think of creative solutions for those. And um, I didn't know, you know, I was, when I was in college, I majored in political science because I looked at, just policies. I looked at the brokenness around me, and I said, man, I want to be involved in the political process to help improve. I want to fix these challenging problems, to eliminate poverty, to close the educational gap, and different things like that. And so those challenges draw me in. I'm able to find creative solutions. I get to use that in my job. I get to think through, man, there are kids all over our city. There are over 20,000 high school age kids in Memphis. How can we figure out how to get a caring adult that knows Jesus in their world so they have access to somebody who can communicate the gospel in ways that they can understand, who can um, be a consistent person and voice in their life. So that's some of the challenges that I get to tackle based on kind of gifts and that God has given me. And finally, it's kind of related to that. Like, I think one of the spiritual gifts that it's not something I muster up. It's not something that I, have watched a YouTube video, but I do think my wife thinks I'm crazy a lot of times, but um, I can just really trust and believe that God's going to do big things. Probably because I've seen him do some big things in my life and kind of come through in big ways. And so I know I can trust him for big things. And so I think faith is something that the Lord has given me a extra dose of. Like, I just don't doubt that he can do things that are bigger than my efforts.
Absolutely.
Oh my
We
gosh.
share that one. So everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I love it.
Okay, so when you and I spoke on the phone initially, you and I were talking a little bit about this new ministry that we've started and this brick building, and just really for us helping folks identify what their talents and gifts are. I don't think, for the most part, people don't think in those terms very often unless they're at a retreat or something, for leadership or along those lines. But you shared just briefly that this one young lady had mentioned to you recently something about, she really wanted to be I think she was in photography. She really wanted to be using her talents for the Lord and that kind of thing. What do you come across that kind of stuff a lot? Do you have a lot of students who are in that
Purpose searching stage,
especially pre-college? They got to pick a major, all that. Do you guys deal with that a lot?
Yeah, we do. I think, I think the whole world, every creature is asking, hey, why am I here? Why am I interested in what I'm interested in? Why am I wired the way I'm wired? And I think high school kids, they want to know that their lives have purpose, that they're not just interested in this one thing, whether it's a sport or a a photography talent or whatever it may be. They want to know that their gift matters to other people, that it can be used and built upon. It can be a brick, right? And I think, I can think of countless examples of just conversations I've had with students or volunteers. I can think of, my friend Alexis. She's a nurse. She's a nurse, which in obvious way, she's literally saving lives, especially right now. It's a hard time to be a nurse, but she also has gifts beyond her profession. And one way that, we talk about it all the time, she's like, hey, how do I reconcile, like, I feel like I'm supposed to be a nurse and medically help people, but I also feel like I'm supposed to be in full-time ministry. How do I reconcile those things? And I tell her all the time, say, Alexis, like, you are in full-time ministry.
Literally caring for people.
You're caring for people, and you're doing it with a smile on your face. And you're, and I think she's already seen patients who have said, like, hey, there's something different about you. And she's able to have really cool conversations with those patients because of her gifting and her putting those before the Lord and allowing him to use those. And so,
absolutely,
yeah, we get to see that quite a bit. And I think the work that you guys is doing is so important.
Oh, well, thank you. I love that you say that because, and we talked about this in our podcast that was just the two of us. But like my day job, God has given me talents for that. But there are so many other things that God has called me to do. And so I think part of the workbook that we're building and part of what we would like to instill in people is that there are opportunities all around you to be using your talents and gifts, no matter really what your vocation is. Although, having a vocation that utilizes your gifts and talents is that much more worthwhile. But very often, just like you were saying with Alexis, she knows she's called to be a nurse. She has the talents for that, but she also has this heart and this calling for ministry. And I love that you were able to encourage her. Hey, you're already doing that ministry. That's part of your ministry. And so I think that is, I'm glad you said that example, because I think that's where our heart is too, is to encourage people to do the ministry where they're at, but then also look long-term and be like, okay, what are the other gifts and talents that you might not be using in your vocation or in your job that we could be using in this, or, you know what I'm saying? So I just thought that was a really good example, and I got fired up and excited.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so when you and I were talking, we had asked you for something that you were really proud of, maybe something that you had done in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about the answer that you gave us? That was awesome.
I was really stumped by it at first, but after thinking about it for a little bit, it became clear. One thing I am really proud of, when I was in college, I was asked to be on a board, which I was like, hey, there has to be other people in this community that can be on your board. But it was a board of a nonprofit ministry in Jackson called Area Relief Ministries, and they do a number of services. Two of the things that were really compelling to me is they do a program called Room in the Inn, where they coordinate with about 20 or 30 churches in the Jackson, Tennessee area. And they provide, they get these churches to open up their sanctuaries for one night a week for the homeless population to have a warm place to sleep in the wintertime. And so congregants will come and they will serve meals, and they will, area relief ministries, they will set up cots for the homeless population to sleep and spend the night, and they'll pack up in the morning, and then they'll do their thing during the day, and night they'll go to a different church. And so it's a really cool thing. They also started an after school program in a underserved community, and they were kind of having some funding challenges. And so they brought that challenge to the board and said, hey, we need to raise $10,000 to keep this program going. And we kind of brainstormed a bunch of different things. And at the same time, I was a young life leader at the high school, had a bunch of basketball guys, and they were like, hey, every year we have to go to some small town to play in this basketball tournament. I wish there was one in Jackson. And I said, there should be one in Jackson.
Yeah,
And there should be one that everybody in West Tennessee, especially rural West Tennessee, should come here to the hub city to play in this basketball tournament. And it can raise the money that we need to raise. And for me, it was like, man, this is easy. Like, I have a friend that's a basketball coach here, a friend that's a basketball coach here. And everybody was like, man, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm like, I don't think. I was like, no, it's going to be easy. And sure enough, we pulled it off. It was really cool. We had it was a 16 team basketball tournament, high school basketball tournament. It's teams that came from Middle Tennessee, had a team from Alabama that came and found it. It was some cool stories along the way. A couple of days, like a week or two before the tournament, we had a team that dropped out, and I was like, man, God, what are we going to do? Like, this thing's going to, I promise everybody's going to be easy. We can pull this off, and we're having to figure this out. And the next day, another team came and jumped in, and it's been going on for, I think 7 or 8 years now. And it's grown each year, and it's become one of the premier, it happens right after, in between Christmas and New Year's. And it's been one of the premier high school basketball tournaments during Christmas time. So I'm really proud of that, not just for, it's a cool basketball tournament, just because it literally benefits, the homeless population and some under-resourced students in Jackson. So
that's awesome.
Do you still go? Do you help out?
So when I moved to Memphis, I helped out, and I eventually said, hey, I think y'all have it now. And so it's been really cool to see it continue to go on, even, without my help. And so it's been fun just to be there to watch it. I mean, the first year, like I was running all over the place. I was working concession stands. I was announcing games. I was teaching people stats. I was running all over the place. And so it's been really cool now just to show up and celebrate what God's doing.
Well deserved. Cool. Well, okay. So back to Young Life. If somebody wants to volunteer, what, in their area, whether they're in the Memphis area or not, what is the best way for people to reach out and to get involved?
Yeah, Young Life is around. It's in every state in the United States. It's in over 100 countries. Here in Tennessee, we are almost in every county. And the easiest way is just do a Google search. You gotta look at Young Life, and they've kind of crafted their website, just younglife.org, to help you find Young Life in your area. And so each area has an area director that would love to figure out ways for you to get involved, whether that's as a Young Life leader or as a committee or board member. There's several ways to get plugged into Young Life, and we would love for people just to look up your city's name and put Young Life behind it, and you will find a way to get connected to the local area there. And so
awesome.
That's great. So we loved learning with you. We also love learning more about what you're doing, your beautiful family. We didn't talk very much. I know you said that I've met your wife and that you have 2 children. Is there any further information on that?
Yeah, we had 2 children. We have a third kid on the way. It's a girl.
Awesome.
And so,
congratulations.
So my wife Leslie, she's a superhero in every sense of the word. But yeah, we have a very fun life with our 3-year-old Caleb, who he wakes up going 100 miles per hour, and he doesn't slow down until he goes to sleep, which he doesn't easily go to sleep. And then our soon to be middle child Hazel, she will be 2 in January, and she's not too far behind him. And so having another girl. We just learned that last week.
Oh my
The
gosh.
third one, so
That is so exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're so excited.
congratulations.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, again, we love learning more about Young Life, and we're both on the same journey, right? We're just out there trying to tell people about Jesus, and
Yeah.
it's great. You're doing your work in Memphis, and we're here in Chattanooga trying to do similar kinds of things. Anyway, we just are so grateful for your time. And I'm thinking maybe one day we'll partner in some
Hopefully
new outreach endeavor. That would be great.
I hope so too. Yeah, I am so encouraged by you guys, and it's just always encouraging to just see people help other people do what God's called them to do. That's all I'm trying to do, is just be where God wants me to be, doing what He wants me to do. And I think the work that you guys is doing, again, I said it earlier, I think it's so impactful because there's so much life that comes from just submitting the gifts that God's giving you back to Him, and
Amen.
He uses those in so many unique ways to bring people to Him. So,
Absolutely.
thank you guys for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
For more information on Project Brickworks and how you can get involved, visit us online at projectbrickworks.org. Follow us on Instagram, like our Facebook page, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and turn on the notifications. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Be blessed, and have a very Merry Christmas.